everybody, welcome back to From Small Things. My name is Sue and I'm a scrappy quilter living in southeastern Pennsylvania. If you saw last week's video, that one was all about my big closet clean out, and so I kind of want to catch you up with how everything went. It kind of seemed a little overwhelming when I had everything out of the closet and on the floor and on my table, but it really wasn't so bad getting everything back in. So we'll put some pictures up of what it looks like now. And basically what I did is I removed all of the things that had to do with crazy quilting, because most of the time when I do that, that just requires a lot of embroidery work and hand embellishment, and I do all that downstairs anyway. So all the lace and doilies and the special fabrics, that went downstairs, and which also meant that I had to reorganize the closet that I have downstairs too. And also that wasn't very bad either. That was pretty easy. But I hung up some sheets in my closet now so that I can see more of them, and the rest of them I folded and put on the shelves. All of my novelty prints now are all in one place, and the batiks are back in there. The books were pretty well organized to begin with, so they're in there too. And basically I can see the floor now, and I can see everything that's in there. The other two boxes that are in there contain men's shirts, and they're up off of the floor now and onto the shelves. So that feels really good to have that done. And the other thing that I noticed when I was going through that is some of the fabrics that are in there were probably better suited to be bindings. That's kind of why they're in there in the first place, is that I buy those pieces of fabric that are maybe 1 yard or more, with the idea of either making binding from them or using them as an outer border on a quilt. And I put them there because I know those fabrics they have enough on that hanger for me to use for those two purposes. So these are the bindings that I made from some of the fabrics in my closet. I have 5 altogether. So I made 5 new bindings. And actually, this one here, I get fabrics from so many places. I went to cut this when I opened it up and laid it on the table. I usually start with like a 29-inch square. So I laid this out on the table, and I was surprised to see the fabric had 2 diagonal seams in it. And upon closer inspection, I saw all of the outside edges on that piece of fabric were already on the bias. So somebody had already made that on the bias. Again, I don't remember where this came from. So this one was super easy to make. I just had to cut strips out of this and join them together. So this was really easy. So I'm glad I have 5 more. It makes me feel good to have some bindings made ahead of time. When I finish a quilt, I get really excited and I just want to put some binding on right away. And because a lot of my quilts, most of my quilts are scrappy quilts, I kind of focus on kind of basic colors or stripes, and that way I have a good assortment that most of the time I can find something that I have pre-made that will fit a quilt. Every once in a while I still do have to make a binding specifically for a quilt, but for me, I like making bindings too. So this, for me, making 5 bindings in a row, it goes pretty quickly, and I don't mind. It's a lot of ironing, but it's easy, and like I said, it's worth it for me to have this step kind of done ahead of time. When I was cleaning out my boxes for my crazy quilts, I did donate some of that fabric. It's not quilting cotton. A lot of it is, I don't really know what some of those fabrics are. They're sort of shiny and satin looking, but they're not satins. So what I would do was I would cut off like, maybe, well, it depended how big the piece was. Maybe I would cut half of it and keep half for myself and then put the other half in a bag, because there was a lot in there. And realistically, I didn't need that much fabric. So I got together a whole bag of it that I knew I wasn't going to use, and I donated it to the thrift store. And going through some of the other things that I found in my crazy quilting boxes, there was a woman's vest that was made probably 90s. Anyway, so I saved it because of these motifs. And so I cut these off, and I'm going to take these little blocks apart and save these little blocks. And this was the reason that I bought that vest in the first place. I may have gotten this at Salvation Army maybe so long ago. So it's time for that to move on, and for these blocks now to be taken apart. I just didn't have time yet to disassemble these. But they're really cute, so I think they can go in, maybe I'll just put them in my orphan block box instead of keeping them aside for the crazy quilts. I'll see once I get them taken apart, but definitely going to save these. The week that I cleaned out my closet, I was also doing some house sitting for a friend. And if you've been watching me for a while, you know I like to take a lot of projects with me and work on while I stay at their house for a little bit. And so I'll catch you up with what I took along with me this time to work on. The first thing was I took some men's ties with me, and I took them all apart. These have all been washed first. I wash them in small batches. I just throw them in with my regular laundry. I don't want to wash a lot of them all at one time because they're going to get knotted up and tangled up in the wash. But this, the amount I'm holding here, this is the amount about that I will just throw in with the laundry. And I just wash them just as I would wash my normal laundry. Most of the ties, almost all the ties, are silk, and I want to make sure that they're going to come out nice from the laundry, because when I make a quilt out of them and that quilt is finished, I want to be able to wash that. I don't keep all of my quilts. I have a lot. But in case I would want to give a tie quilt to somebody, I'm not counting on them to treat the quilts the same way that I would. Quilters know to be very careful with things, you know, as far as laundering, you know, and things like that, and gentle and all that. But if you're not a quilter, you're not going to pay attention to any of that. So that's why I just throw all my ties in, and to make sure that they're going to go through the wash and come out good. So far, I think I've only ever had one tie that didn't come out well, and that was not a silk tie. That was, I don't remember what the fiber content of that was, but it was not a silk tie. So this is what I took with me to take apart then when I was house sitting. So all of this got disassembled. And by disassembled, oh, I do have them kind of tied up. It just means taking out the stitches on the back, and all the ties have a piece of interfacing in them, and then they have a piece of, what do you call it? Like a lining at the bottom and at the top. And so I take those apart. So these are the ties that I disassembled when I was house sitting. And this time I saved some of the little labels from them too. Oh, Ralph Lauren. I don't know if I'll use them or not, but at least now I have the option to if I want to. So that was one thing that I took with me. Another thing that I took was my blue embroidery. So I got one of these blocks finished. So that makes 3 finished ones now. And I have another one that I started. And these were the other 2 that I had finished before house sitting. So there are going to be 12 of these total, and they will be a quilt one day. So that was another project I took with me. And again, this is really good to take for house sitting because it's small. I can throw it in a bag. It doesn't take up a lot of room, and it's easy for me to work on at somebody else's house. It doesn't make a big mess. The ties actually do kind of make a mess, but I clean up after myself. And then the other thing I took with me was lots of shirts so that I could just take them apart while I am sitting and watching the kitty cats. So these are all the shirts that I took apart. There are pretty many in here. It's a really pretty color palette too. So these are all folded. All the buttons are removed, all the collars, all the cuffs are removed. They're ready to use. And what I'm going to do with these is sort of replicate the quilt that's hanging on the door behind me, the brown quilt, but I'm using these this time. I'm really excited about this. Here are a few little blocks I made. Let's see, they're really cute. So it will be similar to that one, but it's going to look completely different. I'm just using different fabrics for it. So that was what I was working on there. And last week I had a nice surprise visit by one of my friends. I don't see her very often anymore. We used to work together years ago, and now I'm retired and she's still working, and she has moved, so she lives a little further away. And so she popped in to say hi, and we had a really nice visit. And the reason that she stopped by is she's cleaning out some of her mother's things. And she's bought several quilts from me in the past. She's always been a huge supporter of what I do way back. She's always, you know, like I said, she's always been a really good supporter. So she knew where this fabric could find a home when she was going through her mother's things. So I'll share some of that with you now. The first piece here, this is a really large piece. I'm not sure what the fabric is. It's not quilting cotton. At first, Pam and I thought maybe it's a linen, but we're not so sure now. But it's very drapey, you know, like a linen is. And I've washed it, and it's very soft. So Pam's going to take this. She had her eye on this right away. So there's probably 5 yards of this. 4 or 5 yards. There's a good piece of this. So this is going to go to Pam. The other thing that she already took was in the stash that Anita gave me, were like a box of old fabrics that had Christmas prints on, and they sort of maybe resembled something like along this line here. not today's kinds of fabrics, but along the lines of something like this. And some of them had red backgrounds, some had white backgrounds, you know, things like that. So she took all those because she calls it ugly Christmas, but she loves them. So they're not really ugly if you love them. And then the rest of them are still in this box here that she gave me. So I have a good assortment in here of some reds, and there are also some plaids in here, which I thought maybe I'll make one or two of these into bindings as well. I think they would look nice as bindings. But some of these actually have a good deal of fabric on them. But you can kind of see the era, you know, when these were popular. And I know I have some of these fabrics already, like this one here. I'm going to pull this one out. I know I've had this many times over the years. And anybody who's been quilting for quite a long time, I'm sure you can recognize that too. So I haven't really done anything other than just kind of put them all together here because I've been busy on other things. So for now, this is just sitting on my table. The only thing I did with that actually was I made one block out of these fabrics as a test block for the quilt that I'm going to make that will mimic the one that's on the door. It's just really like an Ohio star. So this was just a test block. And I thought, well, the fabrics are already here on the table. I'll make a block out of it. And I've made this block before, so there weren't any surprises for me. It's sort of, I don't know, before I start cutting the good stuff and using that, this prepares me in a way mentally for the process of cutting and organizing and stacking my pieces and how to think about making multiple blocks at a time. So I didn't need to make this block because I was unsure of how to make it. It was sort of more like a mental preparation before I started cutting a lot of pieces. But I really like it. So this will go in my orphan block box. While I was sorting and cleaning and organizing everything, I also pulled out some scraps of leftover batting, pieces that are left over generally after I trim up all the edges of a quilt. I don't typically sew my batting pieces together as Franken batting to use again because they're not really wide enough for me to want to do that. My machine only does a straight stitch. It does not do a zigzag stitch. I have done it with larger pieces, like 10 or 15 inch pieces to sew enough together for a quilt, and I've done that by hand using a whip stitch. I know that there are tapes out there that you can sew on. I don't want to use them personally. I am a hand quilter and I don't want to hand quilt through that tape or the adhesive that's on it. That's just for me personally. So I have found a bunch of uses for batting. I still have a lot in my closet, but I'll share one of the uses with you today. I was sewing these together. These are 2 layers thick, and all I do is sew a seam down on each side, and I don't bother turning it inside out or anything. These measure 6.5 inches wide because my ruler is 6.5, so that makes it easy. And these are about 16 inches long, double layers. And this is what I use them for. I put them on the bottom of this for like hardwood floor, smooth surface areas. And look how much dust and dirt you can pick up with these leftover batting pieces. It really does like grab all your threads and everything. So And these two, I found, I throw these in the wash too. And you can wash these multiple times. They will eventually wear thin. And the batting that I use too does have a scrim on it. So sometimes the cotton part wears away and you can still see like the little scrim. So these are, okay, stay there. These are the pieces that I made. And sometimes too, if I have batting that I think is wide enough, sometimes I pass that on to my sister also, who belongs to the Quilting Guild. And sometimes people in the guild can use that, or she can use it to make smaller items. I have used pieces that are small and sewn them together for things like table toppers or little wall hangings, things like that. But I still, with the number of quilts that I make, I still have a lot of batting. So that's today's tip. Try using your batting to clean your floors. The other thing I do too, sometimes I just have like kind of wonky pieces, and if it's a decent size, I always have a piece of that laying around just to clean off surfaces, clean off the top of my sewing machine. Everything in the sewing room gets dusty from all of the lint, all the fabric that you work with. So these things work really great to pick up all that extra dust and lint. Give it a try. And I have one more thing that I've kind of been working on as a sometimes project, kind of, you know, when I feel like it. And it has to do with using up my 2.5 inch squares in my drawer. And as you know, I've made things before using my 2.5 inch squares, and here's one example that I just recently shared. I made, let's see here, 16 patches out of my pinks and my purples, and I put that together in that little quilt. And then here's another one that were the darker ones. Again, these were like pinks and purples that I just made 16 patches out of, and then I put an alternating block in there. So that gave me 2 quilts for charity right there. And then this one, if you remember, I went for all of my greens. I used a lot of the greens and the whites. And so this one was in a previous video also, so I don't have very many greens left in my drawer. So the one I'm working on now is, let's see, this doesn't have a color family like those do. This is a, let's see, 7 across by 7 down. So I'm just putting an assortment of things together. The only thing that I had in my mind this time around as far as colors go, I noticed I had a lot of browns, I had a lot of blacks, and I had a lot of grays. And so I was trying to make sure that every block I made had some of those colors in. So once these are all together, you can't really tell that those are the colors that are going to unite everything. But I needed to do something to use up browns, blacks, and grays that didn't look depressing. I think if I just had those colors in a quilt, it might look a little depressing. So I'm making these. I have these finish at 14 inches. I think I'm just going to put 9 of these together with some sashing and maybe some cornerstones and then maybe a border. So you can see there are just a variety of different colors in these. This one's a little bit brighter. This one has some Thanksgiving fabric in with Snoopy on it. And then I have a few more. So I have 9 of these that will go together as a quilt. And I'll tell you what, I had 9 made, and when I laid them out, I wasn't really happy with 4 of them. And the reason is I'm not really a big fan of Halloween fabrics. I have nothing against Halloween. I like Halloween, but the fabrics, I've never really been drawn to them, but I do inherit them, you know, from people who are, you know, giving me some of their leftovers. So I had, and again, they were a lot of blacks, which was what I was trying to use up. So I was trying to put those into some blocks. Well, not trying, I did put them into some blocks. But once I had them laid out, just for me, I wasn't having it. This orange with Snoopy on it, I don't know. I just wasn't really happy with them. So there are 4 of those that have the Halloween fabrics in. So I'm going to make something out of the 9 of them and put that together. And then I might just send these 4 separately to my sister. Maybe somebody in her guild has a more creative way of thinking about things than I do. My focus was just to try and like use things up and try and find a home for it. And this is actually the first step. Once it's a block now, especially a big block like this, it's much more likely to become a finished project. If you just keep your squares in a drawer and if you just always think, I don't like that Halloween fabric, I don't like it, I just don't like it, then you're never going to use it and it's just going to sit there forever. And I would much rather try and find a place or try and find a use somehow for it. So this is what I did. And my drawer is looking pretty good these days. I still have quite a bit of brown left over. And now my next biggest stack looks to be the reds and then the blues. And after I'm done working on this shirt where I'm using after the quilt where I'm using the shirts, I'm going to have some more blues also. But for right now, all of the other stacks in my drawer are looking pretty good. There's plenty of room in there. So I'm kind of keeping up on that. So that makes me happy too. I also have my rug that I've been working on slowly over the last several months with the twine that I made. At this point, I decided I'm done. I had this laying underneath like another rug that I have, and I've walked on it many times. It's very flat right now, and I'm kind of over it. It's big enough to use for something in a small space somewhere, maybe my bathroom, and I just kind of lost steam on it, and I can always go back and add more if I really want to, but at this point in time right now, I'm done. And I was kind of worried too as I was working on this, I was starting to get some distortion because of how I have to hold it in order to work on the edges to add some more. I did get it to lay flat though. It came out okay, but I was worried mainly that the bigger it got, the more distortion that I was going to get. And so I'm just going to call it done because it lays flat now and I'm happy with it. And look how much fabric I used. I mean, it's not huge or anything, but this isn't going in a landfill now. So, and it's colorful. It's cute. And one more thing I'm actively working on right now is hand quilting. I have that downstairs where I work on that, and I'm working on my blue and white triangle quilt, and it's going kind of slow. I can't seem to really get a rhythm in this one yet. I've been working on that for about 10 days and I'm not very far on it. So I was guessing in the beginning that that would take me about 3 weeks to finish hand quilting it, but I'm going to now guess 4. I am putting a good amount of quilting on too, in my defense, but it's just going a little bit slower than I had anticipated. So that's it for this week, and I'm looking forward to September when we have some quilt shows and some fabric sales coming up. And everybody, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate it, and I will see you next time. Bye.